Hello. Okay, so when we're talking about the difference between Vygotsky and Piaget and their different theories on cognitive development, we can see that they differ in a numerous amount of ways. When it comes to Piaget, we talked about him in chapter 4, and we see that he thinks that children of different ages think very differently, and the changes in cognitive development proceed in distinct stages. This is basically the basis of Piaget's theory, is these stages. And he focused on how the different ages refer to these stages. This was known as the cognitive developmental approach. With Piaget, he emphasized that the cognitive development is driven through the child's efforts to understand and influence the surrounding development. So with that said, he was definitely thinking on more of a social aspect of things. He believed that children of all these different ages are more socially influenced. And when it comes to Vygotsky, we are introduced to the idea of culture. And that's definitely where they differ the most, is Vygotsky introducing this idea of culture and that this is how cognitive development is really affected. And with Piaget, he never really had anything to do with culture. He totally seemed to bypass the idea of culture as if it didn't really affect children of different ages at all. Going back to Piaget, the two processes involving schemes, which is more of what Piaget was talking about, he proposed that children's construction of reality takes place through schemes. And the two different processes of schemes are assimilation, and then there's also accommodation. Assimilation was more of new information altering to fit new ideas, and accommodation is changing the scheme to adapt to the new information. When it came to Vygotsky, on the other hand, his theory often referred to as sociocultural theory, and this is where we're introduced to the cultural aspect of things. Two of Vygotsky's most influential ideas was the zone of proximal development and scaffolding. He also introduced the idea of private speech, and this is where children learn in this zone of proximal development and have conversations with those guiding them, and the children begin to speak to themselves in a self-guiding and self-directing way, first aloud and then internally, and this is the idea of private speech. But basically, the idea that Piaget and Vygotsky proposed about cognitive development differed because Piaget was more of a social aspect on how people develop cognition, and Vygotsky was definitely more on the cultural approach. Thank you.